Before here, and welcome to another video. Now this is going to be using Python episode 3, as you can probably tell from the screen at the moment. And what we're going to be doing in this episode is numerical operations. Now I discussed that in the last episode. I said that I was going to do that this time. So let's get into it. Now what this entails are the sort of the math operations that you're going to be using. So there's stuff like plus, minus, times, and obviously divide. There isn't really a divide symbol, so we're going to sort of be going over how you would perform those operations within Python. So let's get straight into it. The first one, obviously, that we're going to want to use is plus. Now you can use this in the same way that you use variables, so let's call it sum. In fact, not sum, because that's actually an operation that we won't actually use. Add equals, and let's say 5 plus 7, for example. So let's run that, F5 that. Oh, we probably need to print it. That would also help. There you go, so let's run it. There you go, 12. And that is correct, obviously. If you can't do that, then you probably shouldn't be doing this. So we'll then put here subtract, and obviously do let's stick with 5 and 7. 5 minus 7, that should be minus 2 off the top of my head. Gonna need to print it again. That is not a good idea to paste that. That's an article that I was reading about tennis balls and throwing them through walls. But obviously, you don't want to know about that. You want to know about coding. So let's print subtract. I believe I spelled that right. Yeah, there you go. Minus 2. I was right. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is obviously going to be multiply. Now, you may think that multiply is going to be something like 5, let's say x7. Obviously that wouldn't work because x is obviously a letter, so it doesn't really work like that. So the way that you do it is use the star. You've probably heard of the star before, and that's how you would use that. So let's use print multiply here, and just run it, and it should be 35. There you go, off the top of my head. Let's do divide now, to get the last of the simple operations out of the way. 5 over 7, that's not going to be a nice number. So I'm going to actually do 35 over 5, and that should give us 7. So let's print that. There. Run that. There you go, 7.0. I mean, it doesn't really matter that it's provided it as a float there. I mean, you can round it, but that's a story for another time. So yes, that's how you use mathematical operations. Now, and the next step in that would be to use variables that the person has inputted, for example. So let's say that num equals input in this situation, and we want to, and then there's a constant of like or something, or another variable that is just like 5. So let's pretend that we're doing the 5 times table or something like that, and we're using num as what the person wants to use. So let's say, hey, print yeah, not print actually, ignore that. So let's just go up ahead, and I think this will work actually. Num plus 5. Let's say we're doing that. Now it should come up with the input. We're going to put in 7 because that's our number. Now you see we've got an error, and what it says is that we can't convert integers, that's what int means, to strings on its own. This is because we are typing in the letter ourselves, which automatically puts it as a string. So the way to get around that is num equals int num, basically, and that sort of sorts that out. You can also just do this. So both of those things will work. So let's put in 7, that's our number. You get 12 again, as you can see up here. It is the same, which is quite good. So that's basically using numbers that you can input yourself in that sense. But there's also some more complex mathematical operations, and yeah, so those entail other things such as greater than and stuff like that. So let's get into those. You would use greater than, you use greater than or less than in like an if statement sort of situation, where let's say the num is the input again, as before, and then we do num. Yeah, so we've got num if num is, let's say it's greater than 5, print hello. You know, why not? Okay, so let's just run that quickly. Easy peasy. There you go. Sorry, it's down there. So let's say 4. No, 4 won't work, so let's say 6. Classic. I've forgotten to make it an integer. So num equals int num. Let's just sort that out. Let's put in what is it, 5. I shouldn't have put in 5 because that isn't greater than 5. Then we do that again with with 4. I'm actually going to close Python shell here and then reopen it when I run it in a second. So let's just run it because it is getting a bit full, the shell, so it's not working as effectively. So let's type in 6. There we go. Hello. Now I believe you can also do this. If you put the int around the input, then it should automatically do it for us. Now this is actually, so yeah, let's just do that, and it does indeed work. But what if you want num, let's say it's greater than or equal to 5. You want it, so yeah, greater than or equal to, you just put the equal sign next to it. It's pretty simple. Greater than or equal to 5, print hello again. Or maybe not again, because if you type in 5, you're just going to get the hello again, aren't you? There you go, just hello again, simply. Quite simply put. But you should, if you type in something like 6, just get hello, because it is obviously the first one. So that's how it works. This is basically saying equals 5, because when it hits this if here, it will just stop running it. We can also put an elif here, num less than 5, and also less than equal to. It's the same concept, you just put an equal to there. It looks a bit like an arrow, to be honest. That does. So let's say print, I don't know, goodbye. And then we can run that simply like that and say, because 4 says goodbye. And that's pretty simple like that. But what if you want to square a number? What if you want to do something like that? Square a number. So let's say if we want num to be squared. So if num to the power of 2 equals 25, print snazzy. That's, forgot the thing at the front there. That's quite snazzy, isn't it? Oh, whoops. Equals. That's quite snazzy. Oh, hang on a second. This isn't going to work because it's got these in. So I'm actually going to take out just all of these here. There you go. Let's run it again. 5. Snazzy. Easy peasy. Now if you put this to 3 and 125, I believe is 5 cubed, this should hopefully work. Snazzy. Great. Now there are also some more operations that we can use in maths, so let's go into those. The next thing that I'm going to go on to is square rooting. And to do that, you actually need to import the math function, which I think Python comes with automatically. So if you import math, this should actually make some of the others easier as well. Then you can do math.sqrt insert number here. So what that would be, let's say num, and the num is the input, let's say. So let's say num mum equals input. Run that. So the square root of a square number, let's keep it to 5 because I like 5. 25. Oh, that's not going to be good. Num2 equals. See, I've noticed my mistake already. Going too quickly. Print num2. Sorted. F5. Oh no, it's still not good. See, notice that I keep on making errors. There we go. So let's run this now, and let's hope that 25 works, and it does. Fantastic. So that's how to square root. You can also use math to square. If you do pow, let's say num to the 3, this should cube root it, so we should get 125. There you go. So that's how you would use that. So this is the number that you want to cube, and this is the this is the number that you want to the power of. So if you're writing it normally, you'd probably write something like 3 to the power of 7. So if you wanted 3 to the power of 7 in this format, you would type in 3 followed by a 7, and then that would produce the result required. It's going to ask me for a num. It doesn't really matter because 21870 is 3 to the power of 7, and we can prove that by going into calculator, our trusty calculator, making it a bit smaller because we don't want to. Oh, hello, there's 2. Probably should have closed the one that was open, to be honest. Or this one, sorry. Come on. Maybe not. Maybe that one's just broken. Yes, I think it is. So yeah, so if we do a 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, I don't know how to use this calculator, so I'm just sort of rolling off it. There you go, 2187. Boom. Easy peasy. So my challenge for you is to make a basic calculator. Now you can do this by using just the 4 operations, because obviously you know how to do these, but I'm going to say just use the basic 4 operations. So plus, times, square root, not square root, plus, minus, multiply, and divide. That's the only 4 that you need to use, using the knowledge from the past 3 episodes. There's obviously nicer ways to do it, but using if and else statements, mathematical operations, and printing, go and make that program, and then come back here, and then continue watching the video. So I'm going to leave you to do that right now. My finished program, your program may look a little bit different, and it may be slightly better because this is quite a quick program that I've come up with. So the first thing, obviously, we have a welcome message. We want one of those when you go into a new program. You want to have sort of a welcome message to welcome the user, nice and user friendly. Now, I like to give the user a selection of the things that they do, so they know what they have to type in, because obviously with Python being a very selective program, you have to type in specifically what you want. So I like to give and show the user what their options are. So obviously they've got plus, minus, multiply, and divide. So let's go with the divide, because I feel that's good. Okay, so what is the first number? And I like to put in warning messages on some of them. So with this divide, the user needs to bear in mind that the first number will appear first in the calculation, obviously, because that will affect the calculation in divides. Now, I've only used 2 numbers here. I could have used more numbers, and I know how I would have done that. However, that requires loops, while loops. So I couldn't do it here, obviously, because we haven't done a video on that yet. That will be probably next episode, or maybe in the future, because they're quite complicated. So that would be how I would use more than one number. So if you are more advanced programming, you may have used while loops to do that. That's how I would have done it, to make more than one number appear, or 4 loops. In fact, 4 loops probably would suit this a bit better. That's how I would have used it. I would have used while loops to use the whole program, but that's for another time. So here we get, so we type in the first number here in our divide. Let's say it's 25, and our second number is obviously going to be 5, so then we get 5 as the answer, hopefully. And we do right there. So that's proving that my program works. I mean, you've got plus, minus, multiply, and divide, and they're all pretty much exactly the same. They all follow the same tendencies. I mean, we've got the int num1, int num2. Doesn't matter that we've got num1 and num2 because only one of these operations will be running, so it doesn't matter that we've got overlapping variables in some of the sections. You might think that it might, but it doesn't, because it's only running one of the sections, so only some of the variables will actually be, only 2 of the variables will actually be used. Well, 3 if we include the answer. So yeah, you can see that the subtract and the divide has the bear in mind warning, whereas the plus and the multiply does not. But yeah, that's my calculator program. There's obviously a lot more that you could do with this. You could use square roots, multipliers, and other stuff. You could use a little info panel with sub-programs and stuff like that to really develop this calculator program and really make it much better. That's definitely how I would do it. I would use a lot of sub-programs within here to do different operations and like give tutorials on how to actually use the calculator. But that is for another time. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this episode of Using Python. I will see you next time.